Welcome to Nonprofit Stories, inspiring tales from Silicon Valley. We will explore the transformative work of nonprofit organizations and leaders who are changing our community by tackling some of the most pressing issues facing Silicon Valley. So without further ado, let's dive into this exciting conversation. Today, we welcome Sue Guzman, President of Canine Companions for Independence. They lead the service dog industry, fostering independence for clients and dogs, providing free service dogs to those with disabilities, and offering facility dogs to professionals. Thank you to our sponsor, TradeMyHome.com, for their community commitment and for making this podcast possible. In Silicon Valley, 30% of service dog handlers face access denials, compounding the challenge of a 60% accessibility gap. Only 30% of individuals with disabilities have access to service dogs, with an awareness deficiency resulting in just 20% seeking assistance from available resources. And now your host of Nonprofit Stories, Dee Kiso.
Delighted to have you join us today at Nonprofit Stories with someone I just absolutely adore and respect. Her name is Sue Guzman, and she is visiting us today from Canine Companions, and she has brought a VIP guest named Brenda.
Yeah.
Welcome, Sue and Brenda.
Thank you. We're so happy to be here. Very excited.
We're excited to have you. So tell me, who are Canine Companions?
Would be happy to let you know about that. Canine Companions is actually a nonprofit, a 501c3, that is the oldest and first service dog training organization in the country. We were founded back in 1975. That's right, we're coming up on our 50th birthday next year. There's going to be so many celebrations. But we were founded in 1975 in Santa Rosa, California, just a wee bit up the road, for the purpose of training dogs to be service dogs for children and adults with disabilities, and specifically physical disabilities that might affect their ability to get around, or their ability to hear, or their ability to use different parts of their body. And since then, we have successfully placed almost 8,000 service dogs with people all over the country in all 50 states, and we continue to grow the organization even today.
That's wonderful. And I know you have been doing so much with Canine Companions for so long. How did you start that 35-year career?
Can you believe it? It's hard for me to imagine. I guess I must have been in nursery school when I started. It's been 35 years. When I originally moved to California, I moved to Santa Rosa. I had a job with Hewlett-Packard up there and found out about this wonderful nonprofit organization that was literally right down the road from my office. That married two of my favorite passions, one of which is animals, and the other is helping people, both children and adults, that have disabilities, which is something that my family did when I grew up back in the Midwest. And so at that point, I was more of a financial donor volunteer because I was traveling a lot for work. But starting 25 years ago, decided to take the next step and actually become involved with the dogs themselves. And so 25 years ago in 1999, my family and I, we started puppy raising our very first little 8-week-old golden retriever to help train her to be a service dog. And now we are literally about to start on puppy number 16, 25 years later. Brenda here was puppy number 14, and we have continued to be volunteer puppy raisers for the organization for the last 25 years.
Oh, thank you so much for the work you do.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
How do service dogs impact our community?
You know, that's a really great question, because a lot of times when people see service dogs, and they usually recognize that because they're wearing some type of vest, just like Brenda is here, to show that they are working, the first reaction is, I wonder what that dog is doing for the person that's holding its leash. Sometimes that's really obvious. So, for example, one of our sister organizations trains guide dogs. So someone might be sight impaired, and it's pretty obvious that the dog is being their eyes for them, because they might have a white walking cane, they might have a harness on the dog, to understand that the dog is basically safely moving them around their environment. Other dogs, like some of ours, might be helping someone that uses a wheelchair or someone that has prosthetics. And again, you pretty quickly go, oh, that's a service dog that's helping that person either carry things or move things around, helping them move through the world. But there's other types of service dogs that we also train at Canine Companions that help in numerous ways. We place dogs with children that are on the autism spectrum or that have some type of physical disability and maybe using a wheelchair or some other type of tool. And the dog for them is not only helping them physically move through the world, but the dog's a social bridge. They're getting an opportunity to have something with them that is compelling to bring people into their sphere, their fellow students at school. How lucky are you to get to bring a dog to school? And suddenly they're not the person you don't talk to, they're the person you want to spend time with. For others of our recipients who are veterans or folks who have served our country, who might be suffering from post-traumatic stress, we actually place dogs with veterans to help with PTSD symptoms, whether that might be nightmare interruption or searching a house when they come home, or just helping them to have space when they're out in public. So there's lots of different ways where the dogs can physically help their individual person. But even more than that, there's another part of our program that provides dogs to people whose jobs it is to work with people with disabilities. So think of maybe a special needs teacher, or maybe a social worker that's in the justice or court system, or maybe a support person for our first responders. So we have actually placed dogs with social workers and priests both, and ministers that actually work with our first responders. So we actually have a whole nother set of dogs we call facility dogs that work in hospitals and schools and court systems in order to help people who are servicing folks with disabilities, and the dog becomes an extra tool, an extra benefit for them to work with their clients. So there's a lot of different ways that these dogs help our communities and help many, many different types of people in our communities.
So this is a free service to those in need. Can you tell me more about that?
It's amazing. It actually takes us 2 full years to raise and train a service dog before they're certified through the American Disability Act. They're covered as certified service dogs. And during that time, all of that training and all of that work is funded by volunteers and donors to the organization. It actually takes us between $50,000 to $60,000 over that 2-year period in order to get one dog ready to be a service dog. But at that point, when we provide that dog to a child or an adult or a veteran that has some type of disability, they don't have to pay a single cent. There's over 300 organizations in the United States that train dogs to be helper dogs of some kind. There's less than 10 of us that provide those dogs free of charge. And the reason Canine Companions can do that is because of how robust our fundraising, donor, and support systems are, so that we don't have to pass any of that cost on to our recipients. We can provide them service dogs for the rest of their lives at no cost whatsoever.
That's amazing, Sue. So do you actually have to invest, or are you underwritten a little bit when you take on a dog? How does that work?
So for those of us that have chosen to volunteer with the organization, either by raising puppies or like I'm doing now with Brenda, where we're supporting one of the mommy or daddy dogs that are helping provide puppies for the program, we choose as volunteers to do that as a part of our personal give back to the community. So the expenses that are involved with raising a puppy, which aren't that many, to be honest, it's buying a lot of food and maybe a few leashes and a kennel, or taking care of a mommy or daddy dog like Brenda is. She's one of our female breeders, which means providing her with the food and medicine she needs to safely grow and deliver litters. That's all things that as volunteers that we sign up for. And we say that's part of what our give back to the community is we're going to actually cover those expenses. Now, of course, if there was something extreme, like some medical emergency or some type of surgery that might be a little bit onerous for a volunteer to cover, the organization is wonderful about reimbursing those kinds of expenses. But that's part of what we do as volunteers, is to not only volunteer our time, but also commit some of our financial resources as well.
Sue, that is so incredibly generous.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so nice to know that beyond just all your time and your compassion, you're covering everything for Brenda so she can be a mom again.
Healthy, happy dog, right?
So tell me about Putting for Pups Golf Classic.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think I was involved in one of those.
Our early 2 years, absolutely. So every year, our local group right here in Silicon Valley, we like to do a little something extra for the organization in addition to the volunteering. We have a record number of volunteers here in our local group. We call it a chapter. So we're the San Francisco South Bay chapter of Canine Companions. And we literally have over 350 volunteers just in our little neck of the woods that are either puppy raising or taking care of mommy and daddy dogs or helping us fundraise. In any of those ways, you can be a part of that volunteer family. So in this particular case, our group decided we wanted to do something a little extra. And 6 years ago, we started a brand new annual event called Putting for Pups. Couldn't have a better name. So every May, it's always the last Friday in May, we partner with Cinnabar Hills down in San Jose, and we have an all-day golf tournament, charity golf tournament that's specifically in place to support and raise money for canine companions. And so in this particular case this year, it's happening on May 31st. Next year, it'll be happening on May 30th. And it's a wonderful opportunity for golfers, if you like to golf, to participate, or if you want to volunteer and help at the event, or if you just like to shop, we have an online silent auction with the event as well, and you just jump online and you're able to go shopping and check out all the fabulous donated products, vacations, everything that people have donated as a part of the auction.
That's awesome. How much money do you normally raise at this event?
It's been more successful than we ever could have dreamed. So we're, like I mentioned earlier, we're on our 6th annual at this point, and we're usually bringing in anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 every year that we run this event. So it's been a very successful endeavor that when we started, we weren't quite sure how well it would go. And now it's such a highlight of our year that we have continue to have repeat golfers, repeat sponsors, repeat volunteers. They just keep coming back year after year after year. It's fabulous. So much fun.
Get out in the sunshine and enjoy golf and enjoy these beautiful pups and raise money.
And perhaps the best part about it, I think one of the reasons it's so successful is that unlike any other golf tournament any of you might have been involved in, at our Putting for Pups, we have dogs at every hole. We have a putting contest where you're actually putting around the dogs. You have to putt through their legs or around them as they sit. And we also have snuggle booths with our therapy dogs and our facility dogs. So if you just want to get a bunch of puppy kisses and hugs, you can do that too.
That's fantastic.
Something for everyone.
Tell me about being president of CCI.
Well, thank you. I mentioned earlier our local group here, which we call a chapter, is the San Francisco South Bay chapter of Canine Companions. We have another group that's actually on the East Bay, because some of your viewers are probably in that part of the Bay Area as well. We have our East Bay Miracles group that's based over there too. And those local chapters, as a part of our national organization, are responsible for supporting our local volunteers as well as interfacing with the community on a local basis. So just like any organization, nonprofit or otherwise, it's important to have local leaders that are going to help represent the organization and help organize the people who want to participate in the events or help volunteer. And so we have a whole leadership committee in our local group, in our local chapter, that includes positions like president, vice president, secretary, and community outreach, all the things you might expect from a nonprofit. So it's been my pleasure and my honor to actually be president of our local chapter on and off for the last 15 years. It's really been a joy.
Thank you for all that amazing work.
You're welcome.
So tell me, what is it about the power of service dogs? What is your superpower that has you so connected and so dedicated? What is it we don't know?
That's a great question, and there's a couple ways to actually think about that. Brenda, you want to sit on the ground instead? Good girl. Brenda, here. Good girl. Sit down. Thank you, Sue. So it's really interesting when you talk with folks who volunteer with the organization, whether it's someone like myself who's been doing it for decades or someone who's just started. We have a family right down the road from us, a mom and dad and 2 kids in high school that just got their very first puppy to puppy raise 2 days ago. And they are completely overwhelmed and completely overjoyed all at the same time. So there's a big kind of variety here in what brings people to the organization and what the secret sauce is or the superpower is. I think the best way to describe it is to attempt to describe what a difference these dogs make in the lives of the people that receive them. They are literally life-changing additions to their families, literally, especially for the children that receive them, but also for the adults. Not only are they helping with their daily lives, but they're providing unconditional love and companionship, and they're helping people move through the world and literally be more independent. Our official legal name is Canine Companions for Independence, and that's because part of our mission is to actually help our recipients lead more independent lives. Maybe something that they never have had before because they've always had to be reliant on caregivers or parents or siblings to help them with things they couldn't do themselves. So when you talk about volunteers contributing to this, one of the real easy things to glom onto is how quickly you can become passionate about something that is making such a difference in another human being's life. Our very first dog that actually graduated as a service dog, because not all of them do, but the first puppy we raised that did graduate actually went to a family right here in Morgan Hill that had a wonderful young son that had multiple health issues, who was really having trouble at school, was completely nonverbal. And as he was getting older, his parents were really concerned about whether he'd ever really be able to interact with the community, with school, to be in public at all. He got a dog from us, this wonderful little yellow knit lab named Ohana, and it completely transformed his life. Literally started talking with her and communicating with her with his iPad, was able to go to doctor appointments and dentist appointments without having to be sedated first because it used to be so scary that he actually needed that to even have normal health checkups. And literally having that dog by his side that gave him not only a feeling of safety and security, but also, I can do this kind of independence, transformed the way he and his parents interacted with the world. And that's true for all of our recipients, whether it's adults or children that are deaf and the dogs are being their ears for them, or ones that are wheelchair users where the dog's helping them with their mobility, or any of the other multitude of disabilities we place dogs with. It's pretty easy to become passionate about something that makes such a difference when you see them placed with their recipients.
A typical problem homeowners have when wanting to buy a new home is whether to sell first or buy first. Either way is risky. When ready to look for a new home, TradeMyHome.com, powered by Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, offers an upfront guaranteed cash offer on your current home. Are you moving in the next 3 to 6 months? Text PAIR to 408-740-7400 for a free and no-obligation professional equity appraisal report, exclusively for Nonprofit Stories podcast viewers. For more information, visit TradeMyHome.com or call 408-740-7400. Remember, at TradeMyHome.com, your home is sold guaranteed or we'll buy it.
Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Sure.
So, it's going to be different than just going and bringing a puppy home for your family to love and go crazy with.
Yes.
Versus, there must be boundaries and rules. And so can you just briefly tell us some of maybe the top 3 things that you should know that this may or may not be for you?
That's a great question again. Part of what any service dog organization, any reputable service dog organization is going to do is if you or someone in your family thinks they might benefit from having a service dog, there's going to be an interview process to understand what is your daily life like? What do you do for a job if you're an adult? What do you do for school if you're a child? Are you homeschooled? Do you go to school? Are you in a special needs class or a regular class? what are your physical needs that the dog might help with or not help with? Or if you're someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, do you have cochlear implants so that you actually can hear things when you have your tools present, but when you take them out and you're completely deaf, then you need the safety and security of what a dog can actually bring to you. So there's a whole lot of questions and discussions that happen about what is it that you might need as someone with a disability for a dog to do for you. And we might find out that what we've trained canine companions dogs for might not actually be the best match. I mentioned earlier there's over 300 service dog organizations in the country now. Most of them specialize in a particular segment of the population of people with disabilities. You might have a seizure alert dog. You might have a guide dog. You might have one that's specifically diabetic alert for folks who have type 1 diabetes. There's a lot of different types out there. And depending on what you need, we're all referring people to different organizations to match up with what your specific requirements are. So again, for us at Canine Companions, what we're all about is to try and provide a support animal for someone who has some type of physical disability that's preventing them from doing some of the physical tasks they need to do in their life.
Okay, so let's ask a little differently.
Okay.
What about the family that wants to be a service dog volunteer
Okay.
versus just getting a regular
Recipient.
dog?
Yeah. So, we're here obviously talking about nonprofit stories. Part of that is volunteering for nonprofits and all the joy that comes from that. So if you think that your family or you in particular might be interested in volunteering, what's involved with that? Can I do this? Maybe I can't. So it's very helpful to understand that in an organization like Canine Companions, there's a whole collection of different volunteer opportunities depending on what you're able to contribute as far as how much time, what your home environment is like, what your work environment is like, how many people are in your family. Do you have other animals that are pets already? So part of what we look for in volunteers that want to either help us raise a puppy, like my family's been doing for the last 25 years, or maybe help out with some of our mommy and daddy dogs, is to understand what the home environment and the work environment is going to be like. Because during the training period, which is about 1.5 years that you have this dog live with you, you're committing to supporting that dog for that 1.5 years. And that commitment includes going to training classes. Those are free. We have weekly training classes, and you need to go to at least 2 of those a month. It includes the fact that the dog needs to have people present in their life for most of the day. So whether that means the dog goes to work with you or swaps off between the kids versus the parents versus whatever in order to have coverage. You need to have a home that's safe for the dog. So we're going to help you puppy-proof your house. We come and visit with you before you get your dog to make sure everything's safe. And it's totally okay to have lots of other pets. Matter of fact, it's good for the dogs to be in home environments that have other animals, whether it's cats or birds or horses or reptiles, fish. All of that's good. None of that is a problem if you want to actually volunteer to raise a service dog as a puppy raiser. And probably the biggest misconception, which is what I'll end with on this question, is we are literally training the dogs 24/7, but that doesn't mean all we're doing is training a dog every minute of the day 24/7. The way that they're trained is by physically being with us as we live our normal lives.
So they're assimilating into the home life.
Literally becoming a part of your family, not asking you to do anything differently. They're going to lay down under the table when you have dinner. They're going to go to the grocery store with you when you go buy your food. They're going to be in the car with you when you drop the kids off to school. They're going to go to work with you and sit under your desk while you're doing your normal job and sleep all day. They're really good at that part. So the key here is to actually bring the dog into your normal life so that the dog is used to being in a person's world. Because guess what? When they graduate and get placed with someone with a disability, they're going to be in that person's world 24/7. So that's what we're getting them ready for.
So what do you think? Should I have a dog that I can take to my auctions?
I'm thinking it would really help you be successful with your auction business. I have to tell you, as someone who's, done 15 of these dogs, every time we go anywhere with the dog, which is most of the time we go anywhere, the dog is with us. It's absolutely amazing how compelling these wonderful animals are to anyone in public, not only to interact with you and ask more about what you're doing or what you're involved in, but it also is one of those, I call it the attraction magnet factor. It's really hard to see a very well-behaved dog and not want to go over and love on him and give him kisses and say hello. And that's what happens everywhere you go.
Good money to the auction, good money to the dogs,
Charity, all of that.
double duty all
the time. Yeah, it'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it?
Love it. So, how do you support children with disabilities in the area?
We target, as an organization, we target multiple communities with the dogs we train. I mentioned some of those earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We provide dogs to veterans. We provide dogs to adults with disabilities. We provide dogs to professionals whose jobs it is to work with people with disabilities. But probably one of the most dear to my heart is when we are able to provide a service dog to a child that has some type of disability. They may be a wheelchair user, and have muscular dystrophy or cerebral palsy. They may be on the autism spectrum and just need a dog to maybe help them socially interact with the rest of the world. There's a whole spectrum of possible recipients that are children that could benefit from the dogs. But I think probably the biggest benefit that we can talk about for children that receive these dogs in our local community is the opportunity for children at a very young age to realize that their disability doesn't have to get in the way of them leading a very full life. Not only a full life, but potentially a completely independent one. The idea of growing up thinking I'm always going to be dependent on my parents to help me move through the world. And then to realize, depending on the severity of my disability, I might not need that. I could potentially live on my own if I have my service dog with me. And opening up those possibilities just in the way that children dream and think about the rest of their lives, personally, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of service dogs being placed with children.
So why is community involvement so important with your mission?
We literally could not do our mission without our communities supporting us. If you take a look at our website or speak with any of our leadership team, what you'll hear is that our mission statement is to provide highly trained service dogs to children, adults, and veterans with disabilities absolutely free of charge. That's our mission statement. You can literally take that apart into its 3 segments and realize we couldn't do any of that mission statement without the involvement and the support of the community. We can't train the dogs because literally the first year and a half of the 2-year training process of each of these dogs is done by volunteers in the community. We can't support the people in our community with disabilities by giving them a dog if the people in our community that have disabilities aren't aware that we exist or that these dogs are available. So we need that connection, that awareness to happen. And then, of course, the last part is providing them free of charge. We definitely can't do that without a very robust fundraising and donor mechanisms within our community in order to raise the $50,000 to $60,000 per dog that we need in order to get them ready. We literally are training over 1,000 puppies a year across the whole country, all hoping to graduate as service dogs. And you just do the math, 50,000 times 1,000, you start to realize pretty quickly how important that fundraising, community, financial support is to the mission being successful.
Absolutely. Do you have quite the waiting list to get a puppy?
I would love to say that we are able to train enough dogs to meet the need. So we actually have 2 waiting lists that become important in our organization. One is the waiting list of recipients who are waiting for a trained dog to be able to be placed with them to change their lives. And that, unfortunately, we could never train enough dogs for the number of people out there who need a service dog. Not sure if you or your audience are aware of this, but believe it or not, 1 in 8 people in our country have some form of disability. 1 in 4 children will actually have or develop some type of disability through the course of their lifetime. There's no way that one organization could possibly provide enough service animals to support that, which is one of the reasons why there's over 300 organizations doing this. But at the same time, the need will always be bigger. So right now, and it changes, but right now the waiting list for a recipient to get a fully trained dog is somewhere between 1 to 2 years, depending on which type of, whether it's a child or a veteran or a graduate. That's on the recipient side. On the other side, which is the volunteer side, if someone wanted to volunteer and help raise a dog or be a potential volunteer puppy raiser, one of the things we're trying to do is to continually grow the organization. And what that means is more puppies being born, which means we need more volunteer puppy raisers, which means we need more room in our regional training centers in order to get through that whole process and actually have more dogs graduate. So right now, we fondly call these kind of cycles we go through. We're in the part of the cycle right now that we call a puppy blizzard. And what that means is we have a lot of puppies being born, more than we have volunteers available to raise them. And then there'll be another cycle where we'll have more people wanting to help than we have puppies for. That's not where we are right now. We're in puppy blizzard mode right now.
Oh, Sue, that's so tempting.
It is, right? So if someone wanted to right now say, hey, I want to do this, they literally could reach out to us at our website, canine.org, and say, hey, I'm interested in this. And if it worked out and the questions were answered and if someone felt comfortable, they literally could start raising a puppy within a couple weeks, because the supply is quite hefty right now.
Wow, that's just amazing.
Always looking for new volunteers, always.
So how do you envision the future of CCI in this area?
You know, it's kind of corny, but the future is so bright for canine companions. Part of what's been really exciting to watch in my 35 years with the organization is how at a national level, the organization has grown and really expanded in its reach, but also in its mission. And so we try to incorporate that directly into how we operate on a local basis right here in the Silicon Valley area and all the way up to San Francisco. So part of what our local goals focus is for the next 3 to 5 years is to be able to expand the number of families that are impacted positively by canine companions because they're able to have a service dog in their environment, whether it's for their child or for one of the adults in the family, or because it's helping with someone's job to be more successful at their job working with children or adults with disabilities. So we have a goal to grow the number of recipients. We call them clients, to grow the number of clients that are in the area. And we have been steadily moving forward on that, especially these last 5 years, increasing the number of recipients in the area by over 15% a year, which is very encouraging. Now, the tough part, of course, is to do that, you have to have more dogs, trained dogs, to give to those recipients. So if we want to be able to have more recipients in the area, we have to also have more volunteers in the area that are helping with the training portion, because it's still a supply and demand pipe. You can't pump out more.
And money.
And money in order to support that effort. So our 3 main goals as we continue to grow locally are to not only find and support more recipients of the dogs, but to also grow our volunteer family in the area, that volunteers that help directly with dogs, as well as volunteers that help with events and fundraisers, because we need both. And then the third piece of that, of course, is to continuously grow our fundraising footprint. That has to do not only with events like the Putting for Pups you mentioned a few moments ago, but also with our corporate partnerships. So we have a team that's completely focused on working with companies in the area, in Silicon Valley and throughout the Bay Area, to have Canine Companions be one of their focused charity partners, to be able to provide either financial support or maybe more volunteer support, or maybe just the ability to say, hey, if any of our employees want to become volunteer puppy raisers, wonderful. We have a whole infrastructure in place, through our facilities group to make sure the dogs can come to work and can be easily supported in the work environment. So our next 3 to 5 years are looking extremely bright and extremely rosy as we continue to grow locally in all 3 of those factors.
So exciting.
It is an exciting time to be a part of this group. It really is.
So what advice do you have for anyone out there wanting to volunteer for CCI?
Excellent question again. I would say that if you are, or someone in your family, or maybe your whole family, are a group of folks that really enjoy animals. Might not be dogs. Maybe you've had cats before, or fish, or birds, or whatever. But if you'd like to partner the ability to bring a dog into your family, and again, it's not for a long period of time. This is a conversation we have with a lot of potential volunteers where we'll hear them say, we always wanted to get a dog, but with all the stuff going on with the kids or with what my job is doing right now, we just can't commit, 12, 15 years to having an animal with our family. Well, what if you committed 18 months? Because what you're doing by volunteering is saying for the next year and a half, our family is going to support Canine Companions by helping to raise and train a dog. And that's a much shorter time commitment than getting a pet dog, in all honesty. And the added benefit of that is you're going to be a part of a community and have a support infrastructure that runs circles around anything that you would normally have for a pet dog. Not only are you going to have free classes, but you're going to have trainers that are going to teach you how to teach your dog. You don't have to know any of that. We're going to teach you everything you need to know on how to train the dog. And in addition to that, we have this whole community of puppy raising families that we support each other when things come up. So if you want to go on vacation, no problem. You put an email out to our group IO and say, hey, my pup needs coverage for the next week and a half. Who can take her? Within 5 minutes, you'll easily have 5 or 6 volunteers saying, we can take her.
Oh, and they're wonderfully easy dogs. They're the best behaved dogs in the world.
Well, we train them to be the best behaved dogs in the world. So if anyone out there is interested in potentially volunteering, if you want to help with events or fundraisers, that's you're volunteering your own time for that. Or if you want to help with the dogs themselves and maybe be a volunteer puppy raiser, or maybe be a volunteer, we call them breeder caretakers, to take care of a mommy or daddy dog. To get to any of those, it's the same path to start any of those possibilities. And that is, you go to our website, our national website, which is www.canine.org, canine.org, canine.org. And there's a tab right there on the first page that says, do you want to volunteer? And you click on that tab. It gives a bunch of information about all of the different volunteer opportunities. And if any of those look interesting, you fill in your contact information and hit submit, and we reach right back out to you. Our local team reaches right back out to you, and we can have those conversations about what you might be interested in doing or how you might be interested in helping.
Well, thank you, Sue.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank you, Brenda, for coming on into the studio today and helping our entire community know
Good girl.
about Canine Companions, love Canine Companions, and support Canine Companions. Thanks for joining us today.
Here's a sneak peek of the next episode of Nonprofit Stories, featuring Dana Trujillo, CEO of the Crisis Text Line.
So we are a free 24/7 emotional support and mental health text line. So people, and think of it as a mental health emergency room.
They aim to ensure everyone can access quality mental health support wherever and whenever needed.
Home to 741-741 at any point in time in English and Spanish, and you will be connected to a trained, empathetic individual to meet you in that moment. Whatever is a crisis to you is a crisis to us.
Check out our next full episode on Wednesday at 5 o'clock Pacific and 8 o'clock Eastern on YouTube. Thank you for listening to the podcast and acknowledging the impactful work of nonprofits in Silicon Valley. Please subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Thank you to our sponsor, TradeMyHome.com, for their community commitment and for making this podcast possible. Until next time, remember to support local nonprofits.